Today I just wanted to talk to you about my experience trying to upgrade the internal storage on my M4 Mac Mini base model. Now we all know that 256 gigabytes is just not a lot of storage by today's standards, and so a lot of people have been gravitating to upgrading the internal storage due to new third-party solutions that allow you to order a chip that comes in the mail and it looks like this, and you simply swap this out inside your M4 Mac Mini, and that will give you additional storage for a fraction of the cost of what it would cost you to do through Apple. I want to caution you by doing this because, one, you're going to immediately void any warranty you had on your M4 Mac Mini, to include if you pay for Apple Care. You will continue to pay for Apple Care, and then as soon as you need your device fixed, once you send it into Apple and they see that you've swapped the SSD, it's going to be null and void. So just be mindful of that. If you break anything while you're doing this, ribbon cables, anything goes awry while you're trying to swap the SSDs, there's not a lot of parts available for this device currently, and so you might be stuck with a broken machine. And if you try to return it and they check it out and try and test it beforehand, they're going to know what you tried to do and that you've opened it up, which will then void your warranty. Again, you might be stuck with a device that is broken and that is unrepairable, at least for right now. Now, my experience trying to do this was not very good, and that's why I kind of wanted to just put the information out there and caution everybody. I purchased a 2 terabyte internal SSD, and I purchased mine off of eBay. I do know that there are a couple of websites offering these devices, but all in all, I think the best way to go is to either use AliExpress or eBay, because both of those platforms offer a money-back guarantee for the buyer if the item arrives and it is defective. With that, that is what was my saving grace. I actually got one and it didn't work. I put the Mac Mini in DFU mode and I tried to restore it and it didn't work. I tried different MacBooks, different cables. I literally tried everything, thinking that the problem wasn't the SSD, it was just I was doing something wrong. So then I tried to restore the internal drive that came in my Mac Mini, and that worked perfectly. That led me to believe that there was a problem with the actual SSD, not my MacBook or the cable that I was using. And if you do try to do this, you can't use a Thunderbolt cable, and you can't use a USB-C cable that is not 3.0 compliant or above. So even if it is USB Type-C to Type-C, it could just be USB 2 standard. That won't work. It will fail. You can figure that out by usually the speed rating in which the cable is rated for. So if it says it's rated for 480 megabytes per second, that's not going to work for you. You're going to need a faster cable that meets the USB 3 standard. I ended up just using a USB 4 cable, like one that you would get with an external enclosure, and that worked perfectly fine. I went through this whole process. I sent pictures to the individual that I purchased it from, and they basically were very argumentative, and there was a language barrier there because they are in China, and so our communication wasn't very good, but they were basically just trying to say that I didn't know what I was doing and that I was doing it wrong and there was nothing wrong with their product. And we kind of went back and forth for like a week until I just got fed up. I recorded the entire process of restoring the Apple SSD as well as trying to restore their SSD, and I uploaded that to YouTube as a private video, and I sent them the links so they could see exactly what I was doing step by step. And then at that point, they finally were like, yep, there's a problem with our SSD. At no point did they offer to actually replace it or give me a refund. They just said that there was a problem with the SSD. I ended up having to file a claim through eBay, and they were unresponsive for days. And thankfully, because of eBay's money-back guarantee, I was able to get the return approved. And then within 3 business days of the item being delivered, I will get my money back. If it weren't for that, I would have been out the money that I paid. And at the time of the purchase, for me, it was $199. The seller has since raised their prices to $249. But if you were to purchase this anywhere else, I believe that you probably wouldn't get your money back. You would just be out the money and you'd be forced to order another one, either from the same vendor or a different vendor. But nonetheless, not only did you just void the warranty on your computer, potentially have problems from touching stuff that you shouldn't touch without being grounded, because, you know, like if you don't work on electronics a lot, you might not know that. You break a ribbon cable, and then if you get the actual component and it doesn't work, It's just like, I feel like you're just setting yourself up for failure. I ended up just going with a Thunderbolt 4 enclosure, and I picked out my own SSD and I set it up that way. I moved my home folder to the external SSD so that all of the information that I'm going to be using is going to be stored on the external drive. I don't have anything installed on the internal drive at all except for the apps that came with the device that they won't allow you to delete. And I haven't had any issues running that way. So I'm able to edit off of the drive. My read-write speeds on the external enclosure are faster than the internal drive, and it hasn't given me any issues at all. And the great thing about doing that is I can unplug it and I can plug it into a different Mac, and I still have access to all of the files as if it were just a normal external drive. Now the file structure is the same as like an internal Mac drive, as opposed to me just dragging and dropping random files on it, but I'm still able to access anything that I put on there, whether I'm trying to create a YouTube video or edit photos in Photoshop or whatever the case is. All of my stuff is still there. And as long as the drive remains plugged into the actual Mac Mini, and when you start it up, there is no loss. Like, you can't even tell that you're running off of an external drive. The enclosure that I'm using is completely silent. That has been the better way to go than dealing with the Chinese product that I just don't know how long it's going to last. And that's another thing that I actually didn't cover. Even though you're upgrading your internal storage, there's nothing saying that it's not going to last 3 to 6 months or maybe a year and then not work anymore, right? So I don't want to have to keep going through this process over and over again. So I think until a company like OWC or something like that comes out with a product that's similar to this, where they have an actual warranty that they're going to stand behind, and the product you're getting is an actual quality product, I just don't think that it's worth going through all the trouble of voiding your warranty and potentially breaking your machine, potentially getting something that's not going to work, and then now you're out that money. I'm going to be making some videos on the actual enclosures that I have and use every day, as well as the SSDs that I put in the actual enclosure, and I'm going to walk through that whole process and tell you how well that works. But that's about all I have for this. All of the stuff that we talked about, I'm going to link down in the description. And so if you want to walk through moving your home folder, like I said, Mac Sound Solutions has a great video on that. And they've made several videos on that process depending on which version of Mac OS you're on. I will make sure that you guys have information to all of that. I can link all of the products that I'm using currently, and then I'm also going to put where I purchased my internal SSD from, so that you don't purchase one from them. That's about all I have for this one. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos, and I just wanted to get the information out there. So it's up to you. I mean, do what you want. I just wanted to share my experience. So without further ado, I would really appreciate it if you take the time to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.